It's a weird world, man. I mean, first of all, just thanks for coming back on, man. I know it's been, can you believe it was 2017 when you were on this podcast last?
Insane. Right? And that was before it was the basement that night, right?
Yeah. That was in you were playing San Diego. We recorded in your hotel room. Wasn't somebody else there too? I feel like somebody else was in the room.
Mayhem and and Baby Steps.
Wow, yeah, I forgot, man. Back when like Mayhem and Anti-Serum were you touring with Mayhem and Anti-Serum at that time?
I think it was just a one-off San Diego show, and Mayhem was the headliner.
Man,
and that was a fun show that night too. I think that was the first time I ever played. That was a long time ago. I played like a really old record that I released, and I played it for the first time, and Mayhem got video of it.
Oh shit, man! I mean, it's funny what sticks with you, because I definitely have those little memories too of just like, the first time you got to play what was going to go on to be a big track. But even just the idea of like, you know, you opening like for a Mayhem show back in the like Mayhem and Anti-Serum days, it feels like a different world, man.
I know.
None of that sounds familiar anymore.
It does. It's cool though to see how everyone, is still kicking and like, doing things there. Like I see he's doing a lot of engineer work.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it's really cool to see where people like branch off to, instead of like, not everyone's performing and stuff like that, but they're still, out there kicking ass.
Well, yeah, they're still there, period, right? Like that to me is like, that's maybe more inspirational than anything else is like, yeah, if you're one of the people who's in it for the long haul, you're going to play a bunch of different positions. You're going to find yourself in a bunch of different places. And it's all about, putting the pieces together. And Mayhem for sure. I mean, even back in the day, I don't know if people know this, but like Mayhem, even when Mayhem and Anti-Serum were like a big deal and they were touring and doing festivals and releasing bangers and all that, I mean, Mayhem was still, he was like engineering records for, big artists, like even while that was going on. I remember talking to him once and he was like, oh yeah, I like was mixing this Beyonce vocal the other day. I was like, what?
Insane.
Yeah, it's like, what are you talking about, man? Because he's such a low-key dude too, so he's never like really talking himself up.
Yeah, and that's what I love about him too, because like he'll pull something like that out of his ass. It's like, what the hell, bro? What the hell you been up to? It's awesome though.
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, what have you been up to, man? Because it's been obviously we've stayed in touch since that first podcast, but and I've followed the music and a lot has been going on. I love the new EP, man. I feel
Thank you.
The new one, the Calm Like a Bomb EP, and we'll talk about the whole thing, everything that's gone on. But for the new EP, I felt like not only is the music really good, but I felt like production-wise, like technically, engineering-wise, you really stepped it up. And it felt just like, I don't know, like just engineering-wise on some nerd shit, that it really was like a step up. How did that come about? How did you level up production wise?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know. I guess it was because of COVID and everything. Like I just kind of like hunkered down and I wanted to sound, I'm not the best sound designer. I'm not the best engineer, but I did want it to sound a little bit more, richer than my like raw club stuff. So I was like, let me, hunker down and actually like, because if you want to tell a story, it has to have a good cover, like a book cover and all that stuff like that. So, I just wanted to sound, better than my club stuff. I don't know, like I'm not saying it's the best, or I appreciate you saying that because that was one of my thoughts going into writing it. It's like I want to make it like a little more lush and cooler than my actual raw stuff.
Well, I mean, did you change anything? Like, if we're being really nerdy about this, like, did you change anything about the way you were mixing or mastering? Did you watch some tutorials? Like, how did the sonic change happen? Because I think that's always interesting when you can really hear that a producer like either whatever you want to say, leveled up or changed their process or whatever it was. I think it's interesting, like, how does that actually happen?
That's a good question, because I guess it was just me going into like a regular process mode. I did actually care about the mix down more than I usually do. Because it's essentially my first EP. So
yeah, I guess that's true, right? Like first EP ever, kind of.
So like my whole thing was like, okay, if I'm going to put this out there as a body of work, like let's, actually, not saying I don't care about anything else, but I would like to leave a legacy and like, oh, this is his first EP. It sounds really cool. And maybe the second one could, branch off of that.
I loved it too, because it was like an evolution, and not just in terms of like sonics, but I felt like an evolution of just your style in general too. Like it was still all the raw, crazy, G-Buck sounds that I think people looked to you for. But then, I don't know, there was expansion to it as well. Like that track Philadelphia that you did, I felt like that was more like, I don't know the right word, emotional maybe, but it still felt like you know what I mean? It still felt like, like a Philly dude too made it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, for that record, I tried to stay really true to Philly. Like, I actually started to write that on a train riding home. So I was just riding through the city and, I would like the lush sounds. It's like Philly is such a rich city in terms of like, the things you see and everything like that. Like, even if it's like the poorest neighborhood, it's like rich in culture. So I tried to keep that in there. There's little like scratches in the back that's like say murder, which I sampled from like a old dub tune. Okay. Unfortunately, Philadelphia's has like the highest homicide rate and stuff like that. So I wanted to add little stuff like that in there. Like if you did hear it, because like even as beautiful and rich and everything as you see, like in the background, there's like, murder and stuff like that going on too. So
yeah, man. Well, and I love even just you putting that much thought into a club banger kind of tune like that. I feel like most people aren't doing that in dance music at the moment. And I don't know. I think it does give it, like, even if people don't notice that you put in that murder sample, or even if people don't understand why you did it, I do think it's little touches like that. Like for any producers who are listening to this, that's what makes tunes stand out. That's what makes songs feel special. Like it kind of reminded me of that old Natus track. The one that was, what's it called?
Newark.
Yeah, Newark. Yeah, where it's got it's got that iconic like Jersey vocal.
It's funny you say that, not to cut you off, because is the record that inspired me. Like I was even telling Natus myself, I was like, yo, this is like, since Jersey and Philly are so close, this is kind of like the Philly version of that. So like, hopefully one day someone makes a Delaware or DC one, and that, and that would be cool. And then like a 50 state, like even like R.L. Grimes, UCLA, in that same realm. It's like, so like I hear some of these songs about the city or their places that they're from, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be my opportunity to do something like that. So
yeah, man. Because the other thing too is like nobody in dance music doesn't feel regional anymore, and I kind of miss that. Like now people are just making tracks for the internet. Whereas I think when you and I both first started, it really was about like putting on for your city, and each city had like a really unique sound. And some cities still do, but it's, to me, like people focus on that way less now.
Yeah. And I wish it would kind of go back to that, because it kind of gives it identity to artists and regions and stuff like that. Like the whole Mad Decent Fool's Gold stuff was really cool back in the day, because it was like a Philly sound and a New York sound. And then Dimac had their sound, the LA parties and stuff like that. Like that was really tight. And I feel like that would be really cool right now, because it'll put some individualism to the game.
Yeah, I agree, man. Because I think the modern day version of that is like online communities and online movements. You want to like something like hyper pop or something like that. That feels to me like what the old, Mad Decent crew or like what the old Chicago scene, it's like, oh, a bunch of weird kids got together and made this crazy thing together that, just excited them. And then other people caught on to it. And maybe that's just what it is now. Maybe that's just where those communities are. But I don't know. Yeah, there's something about making it from the place you're actually from. Like even just you telling the story about being on the train in Philly and writing about what you saw. That's such a like pure way to write a song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad you noticed that because I knew people weren't really going to notice it, and there's not too many blogs or anything to tell your story, so
yeah,
you gotta kind of like tell it through the art.
Yeah,
like,
there's not too many blogs at all anymore.
Yeah, Porter Robinson's really good at telling his story through his art.
Porter, yeah.
So like that's why I just wanted to make something like that.
I love that, man. And I love that you brought up Porter as like another example of somebody doing that, because I don't know if everybody would make that connection, but that makes total sense to me. And he's another one of those people where it's like his influences go so wide and you feel like he could make kind of whatever he wanted and it's still going to sound like him.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Natus and all of that, this is kind of a separate question, but it just occurred to me because I knew we were coming to talk. It's like between like back in the day, between, the Philly club scene and the Jersey club scene and the Bmore club scene and all that, did everybody fuck with each other? Was there any competition like regionally, or was it more support in general, like between the different club scenes?
I feel like it was always like a friendly competition. I don't think it was anything like negative. Like I see Swizzy Mac still does it today. Like he'll call out Jersey producers and like say Jersey sucks, and he'll do stuff like,
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like we're all like with 30 minutes away from each other, essentially. So I think it's a friendly thing, but I don't think it's anything negative.
Of course, friendly competition is good for any kind of scene. But yeah, for me, it's like club music in general. I feel like it's honestly, it's like anything else. It's like if everybody would just band together, of course, the whole movement would be stronger. And I feel that way so much about like so many different kinds of underground sounds in dance music.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I've talked to other people on this podcast about the ways that, club music has been co-opted by kind of mainstream dance music.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it with it wasn't just club. You see it with other styles of music too. Do you feel like club music for me, I feel like drum and bass is where club music was a while ago, where this year is the year where people are like, this is the year where drum and bass is finally going to break through. And I heard people saying that about club music, a few years ago. And I never really bought it for either one of them, where I was like, I don't know if this is going to really break through the way you're talking about. I mean, for you, do you see, obviously club music has been referenced in mainstream music a ton. Do you think it could ever break through to like, mainstream popularity?
Yeah, I do see it. In the past year, I've been seeing like Spotify and Apple Music and stuff open up different playlists for worldly genres.
That's
not just
true.
club, but I see like Unique just had a billboard in Times Square.
Yeah, shout out to Unique. That was dope. I saw that.
Yeah, so like I wouldn't say mainstream, but it's definitely like, it's solidifying its place. And that would be really tight to see like a Jersey club stage at like Ultra or something,
right?
Or like a club stage, like, cause I think they tried it with like the world stage, but that'd be really cool to see like a club stage where it's just like club music the whole time, like a different type of party. That would really be tight, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm such a cynic these days, but I mean, in the wake of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and all that, especially when lockdown was like really locked down and everybody was home. And I think everybody in the dance community was, talking a lot. Just everybody in the world was talking a lot more about issues of race and representation and, gatekeeping and all that kind of stuff. And there was all this talk about how, when festivals come back, it's going to be different. When the world opens back up, we're going to see all these different lineups. Do you feel like any of that has happened? Have you either seen it or experienced it personally?
No.
Yeah. Me neither, man.
I feel like publications and like publications and all those tweets and stuff, they'll all speak about it, but when they do give these minorities, POCs, any type of platform, it's always like trauma porn. It's never anything like uplifting, or it's always like, oh, how do you feel about the protests, blah, 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 which is fine. But at the same time, where you're not out here asking, any other white DJ what they feel about it. You're just publicizing the stuff. But, it seems like when they write an article about any POC or any minority, it's always like, they got to bring up the trauma that they're dealing with or in the industry. It's great. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair, man. And to, full disclosure, I feel like I'm kind of doing that to you right now in a way. You know what I mean?
No, but not to cut you off, but that's like this is a part of the conversation, and we've known each other and it's a real conversation. But I mean, like when a billboard or, a publication that doesn't really cover POCs or minorities, like you have different guests on all the time. When they reach out to be like, oh, the dance music scene, blah, 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 I don't know how to explain it really. Like I have an article hung up right here. It's G-Buck on why he marches in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like, okay, cool. It's a cool article, but it didn't mention anything about my music or anything like that, So it doesn't suck because it's always cool to get some type of notoriety, but we're out here busting our ass.
Well, it's like people are missing the point, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we were saying, man, I mean, seeing Spotify, show some love on playlists and seeing, artists like Unique get billboards and all that is, that's a kind of progress. Maybe I'm just impatient. Like maybe it's just going to take longer. But for me, like hearing you talk about like a Jersey club stage at Ultra, I'm like, well, they could do that anytime they want,
Yeah. And it felt like they were doing that. Like in the 17, 16, when Jersey Club was like popping, they were booking artists on art cars and stuff, and everyone was playing club. So you knew it could have worked. It's really crazy because I feel like anytime you speak on being a minority or a POC or anything in the industry, it always comes off as a negative.
Right.
That sucks because no one's being negative. We just wanted to point out the issues in the industry.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also there's this like dance music, modern dance music, EDM, like the more mainstream side of the industry, I feel like just doesn't even have the vocabulary to talk about this stuff. So anytime it comes up, people start acting weird or getting uncomfortable. Whereas I think that's why somebody like Carnage is like gets as much controversy as he does, because he's just so plain spoken and just like, out there. Like, and to be fair, like Carnage is a wild dude. He says some wild shit, but I think it's only in, something like dance music where that's kind of weird. I think a lot of other like scenes, cultures, all that, it wouldn't be so much of an outlier, like I just don't think the conversation is advanced enough yet here.
It's interesting you say that because on my EP, there's a track, STFU, and I wrote that basically, just reassuring myself, like, I'm the shit, shut the fuck up, and I sent it out as a demo, or I sent it out to people before the album came out, and I got a text back, or, they replied back and they were just like, oh, this is really sick, but I don't know if I could play this on the stage as a white guy. And I'm like, what? Like, one, I didn't make it for you to play. Like, you know, like I don't, it's a banger by itself, but I didn't write the lyrics for, you know, a white guy to play it. It almost feels personal when you hear it. Cause if you hear it, you're like, oh, that sounds like kind of aggressive, you know?
Right.
But there's songs like In the Pit, you know, it's just like push a motherfucker. That's like actual, you know, like mine's just reassurance, like, you know, I'm the shit, shut the fuck up. And I think it was just a message that was coming from me that made it feel a little bit more like, oh, that's controversial. Like, I don't know, it's saying the N-word in the hook, but I can't play that. It's like you play a bunch of songs with the N-word in the, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, come on, man. That's like every, you know, I feel like almost every like big festival set now from like a big headlining DJ, at some point they play like the most popular rap song of the time. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you're comfortable playing that, but not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's just because it's a, like I said, anytime you speak on anything that you feel about an EDM, regardless of what, it always comes off as a negative. Like, even when people speak up about anything, it's just like, oh, you're it's like almost like toxic positivity. It's like, you're not allowed to have any type of feelings whatsoever, like in your music. It's like, it can't just be mindless bangers all the time. You got to write something. And Shut the Fuck Up was a song of, you know, my anger over COVID and the situations I dealt with, you know, just me in the mirror saying, I'm the shit, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And when they heard that, they kind of took it as like, yeah, it's super aggressive. It's a banger, man, but it's super aggressive. I don't know if I can play this. And I'm just like, huh? Like, I never heard that before. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a little weird, man, especially because, I mean, I feel like bass music particularly, it's only getting more aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, they have like cartoons saying like stop squirming and like dubstep songs, like, you know, getting killed in the middle of a song. It's like, geez, like, I can't, like, I don't know.
Yeah, man. That's another thing I wanted to talk to you about is, you know, listening to your new EP. Like, it's interesting because it's modern in the production values. I think it's forward thinking with a lot of the just a lot of the ideas that are in the record. But then there was also kind of this like nostalgic vibe to me of like the golden era of like the trap years, you know, the time we were just talking about when like Mayhem and Anti-Serum were headlining everything and that whole movement was just exploding. Was that part of it to you? Did you want to do kind of like a throwback feel to part of it?
I wouldn't say it was intentional. I think that's just like my sound, because that's where I came up. And also, like, I like to add modern things into like older stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So it wasn't intentional, but you do have a point though. It's very nostalgic.
Yeah, and I mean that in a good way. Like, I don't know. It's like hearing, I forget the name of the track, but there's one tune you have on there that kind of has that old, like Boaz kind of like vocal lead.
That's STFU.
Yep. Yeah. That's the one. Right. Yeah. And that one to me, like I hear a lead sound like that where it's like I mean, I don't know exactly how you made it, but it sounds like, you know, you took like a vocal chop and kind of started, you know, like mapped it to a keyboard and distorted it and all that kind of shit. And I mean, I still remember when that was first being pioneered as like a style, and it's that kind of thing is super nostalgic to me, but then it's cool to hear you update it with like modern mixing and engineering, because then it just hits so much harder too, you know?
Well, so you do have a point with that, because when I wrote that, that was the point of that song, like just to be loud and abrasive and it's like in your ear, like an earworm. Like, so you are spot on with that. Cause when I was writing that and my friend, we wrote the lyrics together, Sam King. And I was just like, look, I just want this to be like super loud, abrasive, scream, shut the fuck up, scream, I'm the shit, nigga, all over it. Like, let's just make this super loud and abrasive.
Yeah. Like,
and that's how the trap was, you know, in 2014 or whenever. It's like, pop, like you hear at the festivals, like, you know. So I definitely did want that to be like that. That's true.
Yeah, I like it, man. I mean, how's the reception to it been? Because for me, I don't know, seeing not only just you putting out new music, but also, like you said, it's like a full EP and this like full concept. Like the art was on point, everything was cohesive. To me, it felt like more just like a more full package of what you do, and I was
Hmm.
stoked on that. How do you feel about it afterwards? Like you gotten a good reception from it?
Actually, STFU is like the biggest song on it, which is funny because that's the one that the dude said that he
The
wouldn't
most
play.
aggressive one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's with my music, man. It doesn't really hit until like a year or so later. You know,
Yeah.
like I just saw RL Grime do his Halloween 10 set, and he played Your Mind, which came out 2019,
Oh yeah.
and it hit like it came out this year, and people were like, I like you can see the search to Spotify, it spiked, and I was like, that's crazy because this song. But so I just feel like, not to toot my own horn or anything, I just feel like when I release stuff, it doesn't really like hit until, it probably won't hit until October next year when someone plays it in their set randomly or something, and they
Yeah.
find the project.
Yeah, well, I mean, man, I think I think you're right about that for the first thing. But secondly, I think you're in a lineage of people who are kind of ahead of their time. Like, even if you trace back to like what we were talking about earlier, a lot of the club pioneers and all that, it's a lot of people who were kind of unsung in their time. And then later on, people are kind of digging up these records and getting influenced by them, playing them out. It's a weird thing. I mean, because I do think you're somebody who's been either ahead of your time or ahead of the trend for a lot of your career so far. I don't know if you agree with that, but what does that feel like to know that these are good ideas? And especially now to have this proof that, like, yeah, probably people are going to find this eventually, but maybe not right now. It's got to
Yeah,
be, I feel like, equal parts kind of really nice and really annoying.
yeah, yeah. I would explain it the same way. That's very humbling. You said that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, for sure,
Um,
man.
it is equal part. It's a pros and cons, because I will write it and I will send it out and people just don't get it yet. Like I wrote this record, Thank You for Moshing With Me, came out last year, like during the whole
Right.
unrest and stuff. And it has guitars in it. It's 174 BPM. There's breaks in the builds. It's a trap drop, big bass, stuff like that. And when I put it out, it was all right. But now, since 174 is a lot of people playing drum and bass, a lot of people are playing like higher tempo. Now people are starting to play it. Like I just got notified. Some Japan blog just wrote the song up. Like it just came out yesterday. They were like,
Okay.
"Oh, this is awesome." I'm like, "Damn, I put that out last year." But I mean, it's always good to get recognition. But it would be cool if I had the opportunity to, I feel like when I put stuff out, another artist will play, like RL, like I just said, RL Grime just played it. I won't get a chance to play that stuff. Like, because it's
Right.
old to me, like it's not like, it's like if you go play a show, you want to play your new shit. You want to play all your new music and stuff like that. And when someone else plays it, it's like new to that crowd. But to me, it's like, I've worked on this a long time ago, and I don't know how to explain it.
No, I know what
I
you
guess
mean,
that's
man.
the curse.
Yeah, I mean, by the time a song comes out, the person who made it is usually sick of that song because you probably made it,
Mm-hmm.
a year, maybe more than a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and you listened to it 100 times already.
And usually when you do your sets, it's literally like your thoughts moving ahead. So Your Mind was really cool to me to play in a set 2 years ago when I was doing like club heavy sets. But now right now I'm in a ballet funk space.
Okay.
I'm just like, I just been really loving like, worldly stuff. I just think that stuff never going to go timeless. America's scene is so wishy-wash, but I think like Latin music in general is just, it doesn't matter. You can listen to Latin music from 30 years ago and it's really still relevant,
Yeah, that's true. Those rhythms are kind of timeless. Have you been making a bunch of shit like that?
Yeah. So I got the chance to do the production for Red Bull Battaglia, which is like their like MC battle.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. So me, Happy Colors, a bunch of us, we just went and hunkered down in Miami and just made like 90 something beats, different style, like all Latin vibes though, because they're like Latin MCs. And after I saw that, I was like, whoa, this is crazy to see, you know, even though I'm not the most, I'm not the biggest Spanish speaking person, so I don't know what they're saying, but it was just like, this vibe is awesome, you know, it's like, you know,
yeah.
So I got really into that from that.
Just in general, like producing for other people, producing for rappers, something like that. Is that something you're looking to get into more?
Yeah, but I would like to be more, I wouldn't want to be like a producer. I would kind of want to be more like a Gustaffelstein or something.
Yeah. Like you're the artist featuring somebody. Yeah.
So because you can still put your vibes on it. Like Boys Noise is doing it as well, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can still hear that Gustaffelstein, Boys Noise sound in a Lady Gaga track, you know?
Yeah, that's true. No, and for them too, it's like, yeah, they're great examples of people who do it right, where it's not like they're copying the sounds they're inspired by, but also like them using those inspirations changes their own sound. So it becomes this totally new kind of like unidentifiable kind of thing, which is, I think, what people look to them for ultimately, you know?
And I think that's probably how club music can, you know, make it mainstream, when you start putting these producers with, you know, in the room with vocalists and stuff with a lot, like a big following, and just let them create something. You know, like I see that Cookie Kawaii, she popped off. That was a mainstream song, essentially, and that's club music. She has that song Violins with 4B. That's club music. So I think there is a market for it. You just got to let these people get into these spaces, these studios and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. And shout out to Cookie Kawaii too. Yeah, she's been killing it. Her last little EP was super dope too. And I mean, looking, as long as we're talking about producing for other people, I do see the plaque in the back on the wall there.
Dude, I got this. That's my baby right there, man.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. The picture you posted up with you and the dog and holding the plaque out on the street. That's an iconic shot, man. What was the story? Because you and I talked a little bit around that time, but I feel like we didn't get the whole story of like because the plaque came to you kind of super late, right? Like you weren't expecting to get the plaque.
Yeah, it came super late from the label.
It's a Flow Rida track, right?
Yeah.
When was that? When did you work on that? Because it was a while back, right?
2015. So I did a remix for the song. Because the remix did really well too. It still pops up. It's like I'm trying to get it away from my Spotify. Like that's the annoying part. I'm releasing. I gotta release all this music because I'm trying to get that song out of my top.
Right,
you know, like,
right. Well, that's an annoying thing about Spotify. I've talked to a lot of people about that. Like you can't select what order people see your songs in. You know, and it's like, yeah, Spotify. I don't know, man. With everybody posting their like Spotify Wrapped things lately, I don't know. I'm not a huge, like, Spotify is an amazingly built tool, and I think it's great for the listener. But obviously, we know it's not great for the artists in the sense that like it doesn't pay us anything. And I think for club music, and I don't mean like necessarily just like your kind of club music, but just music for clubs. Dance music, like the streaming model, I don't know. Everybody's trying to make these records that are just going to stream well so they can get those TikTok numbers up, so they can be on people's Spotify Wrapped lists. All of this shit that like at the end of the day doesn't really benefit them as an artist that much. I don't know. I'm a little off it right now.
I mean, this literally happened as we speak. the whole Spotify rap thing, it kind of blows my mind because there's so many other different platforms out there. Like not everyone uses Spotify. So I kind of, they definitely, Spotify is smart for gaming the listener and the artist because they send listeners raps as well.
Yeah.
To tell them their favorite artists. And then they send the artist that and they're like, oh, I got this many streams. And all we're doing is promoting Spotify.
Exactly.
Like Apple Music wasn't trending yesterday. Tidal wasn't trending yesterday. Amazon Music, like, cool, you got all these plays on Spotify, which is awesome. But think about how many plays you got all over the place. Like, that's what we should be sharing, if anything.
Well, yeah. And also, like, you got all these plays on Spotify, but like, how much money did you make off of those plays?
Yeah.
It's not much.
And they paid the least. And it's like, yeah, I see. I don't post that shit.
Well, it's just, it's so capitalist in a way that where it's just like, you know, all we're really celebrating is like numbers, you know, it's like, we're not really celebrating art in any way. Like, yeah, I don't know.
And you know, it's a cute little ego boost for artists. You know, if you had a rough year, and I seen a lot of posts yesterday, like, I haven't released a song since 2017 and I have 2.5 million streams this year. It's like, you know, that's a cool thing to like, but at the same time, it got to be bigger than that, man.
Yeah,
it can't
man,
just be about
and it's definitely not. You know, I'm not talking down on anybody who does post that. Like, I reposted some people who like had this podcast as their top podcast last year and all that.
See, that's sick though.
No, that's great.
Sick, though.
Yeah, of course it's an ego boost. It makes me feel good, but I think it's totally possible to acknowledge that, like, hey, that's nice, and you know, I'm very grateful that anybody listens to anything I do, obviously. But then we can, in the same conversation, talk about that, like, this is not a good model for artists. And I just read this article. I don't know if you saw this, that the CEO of Spotify, whatever that dude, Daniel Ek, I think is his name, just invested like $100,000 or maybe more into like a defense contractor firm. So it's like,
really?
Yeah. So it's like literally he made some announcement about it and, you know, just got like booed off of Twitter basically. Because it was, you know, more or less it's like, yeah, he's taking the money he makes off of people's art and turning it into like military contract. I don't know, man.
Insane.
Yeah,
insane.
It's
insane.
crazy.
And that's why, and that's why I'm appreciative of every listen. And it's not like I don't do it. Like, I just posted the other day when STFU went over a certain amount of plays or streams and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's definitely like a good clap for yourself, pat yourself on the back thing. But when it comes down to this time of year, it's literally a marketing scheme.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like a mass marketing scheme. It's like, all right, let's send out the Spotify rap. We got all the artists and all the listeners posting Spotify right now.
It's such an evil genius thing to do, man. Yeah, they just get millions and millions of people giving them free advertising.
Yep.
For like a full week. Yeah, it's so wild. And then it's so smart too, because then all the people who don't use Spotify feel left out, you know?
Yep.
It's so
and it's like, damn, all right, I'm going to get on Spotify. I don't get a rap next year.
It's so smart, man. I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like the streaming model in general, I've talked on the show before. Like, I feel like people you and I know, like good producers, some people like started changing their sound to try to make songs that stream better. That shit bums me out, man.
And I wonder what's the longevity in that. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Like, I could have easily made TikTok club music or like meme music or anything like that. But when I was sitting here during 2020 over COVID and shit, I was like, I'm more worried about the legacy when I leave. You know, like, I don't care about. I mean, I do care. Obviously, I would like to get fruits of my labor while I'm alive. But, you know, when I leave, people will see Calm Like a Bomb and they'll be like, oh, shit, like he had a message. Or they'll hear my old shit. They'll hear like a Barrel remix or a GG Bay or, you know, all that stuff. And they'll be like, oh, he was a cool producer, you know, whatever. I just don't get the making music for this exact moment thing.
Right.
Like, okay, like drum and bass is popping off right now. Like, all these producers are starting to make drum and bass. It's like, learn the genre, play it. Like,
Yeah.
don't just put like breaks and shit in your stuff. Like go learn the genre, go, sit with UFO and fucking talk to him about drum and bass and jungle and shit.
It's so funny you say that, because I think, there's so many producers who are starting to make drum and bass like kind of tunes right now. But I don't know if everybody from just like a listener perspective can tell, but from a producer standpoint, it's so easy for me to tell when the person making the tune like actually has been listening to drum and bass for a long time or not. Because some people, it's just like, they do it at the right tempo and they have that like the rhythm of like dun and like that, but that's kind of it. Like you can tell there's just no knowledge of like what came before or how this fits into the bigger like genre. It's so funny you say that, because I was just thinking about that the other day.
That's the thing with drum and bass too. It's like we're in a era right now where, one, you want streams, two, they're just trying to make the loudest track ever.
Yeah.
And three, it's like easy bake oven shit, there's really no feeling behind it. And not to toot my own horn or whatever, but I did a song called Quarantine Dreams with UFO last year. And it was just like, it's the most fucked up song.
That song is wild.
No structure. Yeah. And we when we made it, we were just like, we were talking on the phone. And he was like, let's just like make sounds that we just hear in our head. And that's what the song is. It's like a dream, it's like a fucked up,
right.
Like
no the same way like dreams don't always make logical sense if you think about them later.
Exactly. And, just by talking to him and hearing his creative process, because he's a D&B god, like. Oh,
for sure. Yeah. People don't know. Yeah. His history is wild.
So like just to see his creative process and stuff like that, I was like, soaking that in. And I'm still not prepared to make any drum and bass, right. Even though I feel like you just got to learn. Like, I feel like everyone just jumps into shit and jumps out and jumps in and jumps out. Me and you, we've seen people come and go, man,
Yeah. Every day, man. It's you see it more and more. And I think, the people who are in this for the short term, you can always kind of tell, like, even if they're talented, you can kind of tell from like the music and the attitude. I don't know. I was listening to, this makes me think, I was listening to our first podcast earlier this morning because I wanted to remember what we were talking about then. And one thing we were talking about then was, the slow burn career versus the kind of like one hit blow up kind of career. And you were saying that, like you felt like you were kind of in the middle of like a slow burn, and that's kind of how you preferred it to be. 3.5, 4 years later, how do you see it now? How do you see like where you fit into the overall scene? Like, what are your goals? Are there certain projects you're trying to get to right now? Like, has your view of your own career changed over time?
I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I want to stay creative and true to myself. I also do want to be financially stable and, get out there and do these things that everyone else is doing. But I feel like the slow burn is the way to go. I mean, like I just released my first EP this year.
Right.
So like I haven't even really begun.
I love that attitude, man. Because
it's like this. Your story is a story. The book doesn't shut until you shut the book. So
I hope everybody hears that, though. For anybody who's listening to this, is like, like you're just getting started. What, 10 years into the game? Like
my first song was played on a main stage festival, 2014.
Yeah, crazy, man.
And that's a long time ago. Yeah, that's a long time ago. And I've watched people. Come and go, man, up and down. And like I said, this year, I'm still getting played in big sets. It's like, it's all about, staying true to what you want to create and finding yourself. If I would have wrote my first EP when we first talked, it would have just been like mindless club bangers and shit like that, which is fine. But I'm getting, I don't know. Your music is like, your music is like, it's like literally a catalog, man. And you got to treat it as such. So when you're ready to put your foot out there and make like something that you actually care about, and I care about that with Calm Like a Bomb, because the slow burn shit, Calm Like a Bomb, is like I'm just sitting here remaining calm, and then when it's time to pop off, it's not calm anymore. You don't know it's a bomb until it goes off.
Right. I love that you have this like conceptual framework for everything you do, man. Because I don't think a lot of people in bass music like go that deep thinking about their own work that way. Have you always been that way? Like what is actually, let's take it back even one step further. Like, what does writing a song look like to you? Do you have like a typical process for production?
Yeah, I usually go with like a melody, or if I'm like attached to a melody I wrote, or a vocal, because that's always how I've been sampling and stuff like that. If I have a good vocal or an idea of a vocal, I can write a full song in a day. But the tough part with, especially now, if this was still SoundCloud, I release songs every week.
Yeah.
But especially now, it's like you can't really upload it on Spotify and shit if it doesn't have a sample or all this different stuff.
Right.
So that kind of made me get more into writing. And it's like, okay, I do want to write a banger, but I kind of want it to have substance. As long as there's something like meaty substance there, like, then I can write. I don't have like a writing process where I just go in and start here, start there. I just have to have some type of substance.
So is that how it starts? Like either you hear a catchy vocal or a melody in your head that, sticks in your head. Do you hear that and kind of hear like maybe how you would make the track? Does the concept for it come shortly after that? Like as far as like the philosophy of it?
Yeah. So I usually I'm more of like you said, a conceptual guy. So a lot of, like, I'm writing a song right now. It sounds like a busy signal. And I didn't notice that until I just like kept writing it. And then I was like, okay, like, so I have like phone call vocals and stuff now in the whole song. So the song's basically like a phone call.
Oh, essentially. That's dope.
So, like, even if you are writing stupid ass noises, like, you can conceptually bring it all together in the end, so
yeah,
like STFU, like it's a loud, it's an abrasive lead, and it reminded me of like a trumpet, like an arrogant trumpet, like walking around. So I was like, okay, what does it sound like? And then it has to be like a chant, like you're just walking through, blah, blah, blah. I'm the shit, and then like that's how it came about. Like, so it's just like you just got to get attached to a substance or a concept and just keep writing on them.
And I think it's also, if we're talking about like the nitty gritty of like how these songs are made and how they're conceptualized, it's kind of like leaning into whatever the song wants to be, right? Like if you're saying, you made the song, you didn't realize it sounded like a busy signal, but then once you did, you lean into that, right?
Let it take over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get more creative, and then that's when you start, putting dial tones and like little cool shit throughout the track. The track makes itself.
Yeah. I love that.
You just gotta like, I feel like a lot of people, they kind of force their art, and it's like, you don't have to force yourself. You don't have to do anything. You just gotta, like, your brain is your brain. And if you write, and if you are talented as you say you are, then it will just take over, man. Stop forcing it.
Yeah.
And that goes into hand with the Spotify thing. It's like, don't force a sound, like it'll come.
Yeah. And don't second guess yourself too, right? Because that's something I think producers, you hear it all the time, but it's hard to like really internalize it, that like really the best tool you have is just your brain, your personality. There's no one else on the planet like you. And that, fuck the engineering, the mixing, all of that. Like all of that can be learned, but nobody can learn how to be you and how to see the world the way you do. And if you can really trust that and lean into that, you might make some weird sounding shit that people don't understand, but you also might, make the really groundbreaking stuff that is the kind of music and the kind of artist that we all spend years talking about.
Exactly. And I feel, yeah, exactly my point. And like, I'm not saying it's the most frugal thing. Like it's
Right.
not, you're not gonna pop off, overnight doing that. But at the same time, as down as I am about, the industry and shit like that, like as long as you wake up and be yourself every day, like going and writing, and people know if I go to a studio, they're not like, yo, give me this drum, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yo, we want that G-Buck shit in the studio, and it's like, all right, cool. I get to be myself
Right.
creating, that's all. That's the awesome part.
Yeah. It's like, what could be a better reward than that?
Yeah.
And wait, what were you talking about with the Calm Like a Bomb EP earlier? You were saying something that like there was a book cover involved. What were you saying?
Oh yeah. So the cover art.
Yeah. Which I love, man. It's like super. That's what I was trying to say earlier was like I loved seeing like a cohesive package around what you were doing, because I feel like that's like one of those cheat codes that I think a lot of producers are like coming out the gates with now, where like it's a new artist and it's just fucking all the art is cohesive, the brand is like so shiny and on point and all that. And I love seeing that for you, man. What was behind that?
So I'm a big Rage Against the Machine fan, and they had a song called Calm Like a Bomb.
Right.
So essentially when all the stuff was going down, the unrest and stuff like that, it was kind of like ragey, like Rage Against the Machine time is,
Yeah.
The protests in the street and everything like that. It all kind of, like I said, the art just came together. I was like, damn, I'm a big Rage fan. I get to pay homage by naming my EP that. And also I can still keep the same theme as Rage Against the Machine. And, I have, there's Philly in there, and there's, the protesters. And if you look at the cover, there's like the protesters and and then there's like, the city, the nice part of the city. If you really look into it, you can see it. And it all just came together, man. Can't Kill Me was the intro, and it was just like, you can't, as down as you get me, you can't kill me, man. Like, and that's for anybody.
Right. Take it how you want it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was cool writing that because during the whole George Floyd thing, I was writing that. And even though he did essentially pass away, like the whole world was galvanized over this shit,
Yeah.
So that's what Can't Kill Me. And I sampled Pusha T. These scars are only real proof you can't kill God. That all played together. I don't know, I don't really have the best, like I can't give you like a pinpoint of how I did it, but I just know it was all come together, and I was like, this is sick, man. It's cool to put together something like this.
When you were younger and you were just listening to music as a fan, were you the kind of kid, were you like looking at liner notes? Were you looking for the, noticing all the little touches? Like, have you always kind of been like that?
Yeah. Listening to Prodigy. What do you mean, like production wise, or just like?
Yeah, production wise, or art, or liner notes, or any of that. Just like the little, because we're talking about all these little details that maybe not everybody picks up on. But I feel like the producers who really care about that, a lot of times, like it was the same thing when they were just listening to music when they were younger. Yeah,
I just feel like the little things you can always take, like turkey, like Thanksgiving, for example. Turkey is turkey, but it's the things around the turkey that makes Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting the turkey, but it's like, all right, everyone, not everyone has the best mac and cheese. Not everyone has the, whatever you have. So the little ingredients you make around a turkey is what makes Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
That's how I look at, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I like that, man. But I mean, when you were a kid, like what kind of music really turned you on to that kind of thinking? Like really, flip those switches in your brain. Like, do you remember a song or an artist you heard that really, really made you nerd out when you were a kid?
Yeah, I would say Prodigy and Fatboy Slim, because they they were just taking sounds from all different types of shit and just turn it into their own shit. And like I always tell people, I don't want people to think I'm this sound designer. I'm not Skrillex. I just take sounds and I just do what I can with what I have. And I feel like that's what Prodigy was doing with their production.
Yeah.
I feel like Fatboy Slim did that with his production. Diplo did it with his production.
For sure, yeah.
You know, even the Major Lazer stuff, like...
Oh, the Major Lazer stuff, for sure. I mean, like,
yep.
You hear about, you know, there's lots of stories about how Switch used to produce, maybe still does make music, but like...
Switch, yep.
Yeah, like, you know, the early Major Lazer stuff where Switch was heavily involved. I mean, it sounds so fucked up because... at least my understanding is like, yeah, he would just do insane things in the studio, like super kind of caveman, like not what you're supposed to do kind of shit to get the sounds.
That's the best.
Yeah, man. Like super punk, you know?
I saw Skrillex produce one time, and he's another person that's like that because he'll just take anything. Like, you know how there was this time when everyone was saying like, oh, you got to make all your own sounds and don't use this sample, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I seen Sonny take a sample and just completely flip that shit. And it would sound absolutely nothing like what it sounded like. And Boaz is like that too. You know, all these really great producers, it's about making something of what you're given.
Yeah.
You know, the old school Africans that used to, you know, drum in the beat circles and shit, they didn't have FM8 and Massive and shit.
Yeah.
And they just had a beat. You know, you just had a fire ass beat. So like Bauer's like that too, man. All these dudes, I'm shouting everyone out. You know,
it's good though, man. I mean, there's like that punk attitude. That's the roots of dance music, man. I mean, if you want to talk about like, you know, how techno was invented. I mean, I talk about this all the time because I love the stories of it. But, you know, it's like they had like a drum machine that wasn't intended to be used the way they were using it. And they just like kind of fucked it up and used it in the like quote unquote wrong way because it's all they had. And that's, you know, that's how dance music was created, was like people, like you said, just doing what they can with what they had. Like
Kanye, like the way Kanye does it, it's just so, like you said, it's so punk. Like,
yeah, that punk attitude, man. I mean, that's something that I think has gotten. I don't know if it's gotten lost, but it's something that with the like EDM boom and, you know, the big festival stages and all that, the punk thing did get lost for a minute. I feel like maybe it's coming back to a certain extent now.
Oh, I'm seeing a lot of producers right now that are they're just taking shit, you know, and flipping it like crazy ways. I think it's came back with like the lo-fi movement, you know. It's like you're allowed to sample whatever the fuck you want. You're allowed to do whatever you want. And it doesn't have to be this pristine 128 for the floor record, you know. Like you can have fun with music, and I think people are starting to learn that again. I'm a big fan of More Kismet.
More Kismet's amazing.
Yeah, their stuff is sick. Like, you know, and it feels like the stuff that, you know, when we were coming up, it's like really different. It's different sounds.
Oh, it's so punk. It's so punk. I mean, I had More Kismet on the podcast a while back, and they said a bunch of amazing lines. But the one thing that always stuck with me in just talking about this punk thing was they were talking about how I was asking like just about production process in general. And, you know, they're on FL, and I think they use FL in a weird way that not a lot of people do. And they were talking about like, they're like, yeah, when I really wanted to have like that bounce, that's when I put, you know, sub under the hi-hats. And I was like, what? You put sub under the hi-hats? You know, just like a weird, like little nerdy thing where I was like, nobody does that. That's like, that would be like one of the first things someone would tell you not to do. Just like little things like that. I'm like, okay, you're thinking about this differently.
Yeah, definitely ahead of their time.
They're breaking down those boundaries, man. I mean, as far as like, I early on I felt bad because I felt like I jumped into just like complaining about shit. But if we're talking about shit we're excited about, earlier on I was kind of dogging promoters a little bit because I feel like these lineups haven't changed. But one thing, if we're just shouting people out, you talked about them earlier, like shout out to Brownies and Lemonade, because I do feel like they're doing it on such a big level and proving that, like, yeah, you can have interesting, diverse, like exciting, non-traditional lineups and have it be just as big as anybody else's. To me, man, it's I don't know.
Shout out Brownies, but also like book me in LA, bro.
Yeah, right.
I love their LA pop-ups are so fun. And I always see them. I always see the videos. I've never been there, but I only did one of their things over COVID, which was fun.
But yeah, man, I mean, there's definitely, I guess I only brought them up to say there are people doing cool shit, and there is some new energy, part of that punk energy, that progressive energy, all of that does feel exciting to me. And the punk thing too. Have you heard Night Punk, the producer Night Punk?
I saw Night Punk around NITE.
Yeah, NITE Punk.
I saw that around.
I got to send you some of his stuff, man. I don't even know him. I've never talked to the dude, but it's like kind of like old, like Prodigy vibes, but just with awesome, like super crisp, modern, like production values. Some of his shit, I think you would really be into it because it is wild.
I was a big fan of ISO. He's on Sable Valley.
Yeah.
And Jones too. Shout out Jones for complete. That's another person who stayed, completely didn't stray away from anything they didn't want to do.
True.
And he's definitely seeing the fruits of his labor, and that's awesome because he deserves it. He's made some bangers, before a lot of people were even into dance music.
Yeah.
Like he had one of the biggest bangers in trap, the Turn Up.
Turn Up, record. Man. It's what would EDM trap music be without that song?
Yeah, for sure. And then like Express Yourself. So he's solidified and he's still out here like smoking it. So like that's awesome.
Yeah, man. You want to talk about that slow burn career. You want to talk about people playing different positions over the course of a long career. John's is such a great example of that. Like, yeah, he had two of the biggest songs in like two different movement, the Moombahton movement into the trap movement. And now, he's got a whole new project, whole new like style crew, but it's still very authentic to him. And you can tell he just cares so much about this shit too. Like, just like you kind of, those little details, I think he puts a lot of that into his own music too.
Yeah. And that's why I love, like, he's one of the people I do reach out to in the creative process. If I'm like, 3:00 in the morning, like, I'll hit him up. Just because he cares, like he's not just gonna be like, oh, yo, cool,
right?
Or it's like, oh, this is a banger. Send this when it's done. Like I just really value his opinion on as well as I value like a lot of people's opinion when it comes to the creative process, because when you send out demos or like modes, like that's a very vulnerable time because it's not done, and you always got to send that little like, this it's not mixed down yet, but you're just trying to get, it's like, don't kill me on this one, but how you feel about this idea,
Yeah,
but like,
a little disclaimer.
He's one of those people I value sending shit to.
Yeah, no, and he'll be honest too. That's the other thing, because that, if you're sending shit around to your friends, it's so easy to get people who will just be like, oh, it sounds great. Sounds great, man. Just like people who they mean well, but it's just not helpful feedback.
Yeah.
But yeah, Johns will definitely, if he doesn't like something, he'll let you know. And I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you, I was reading old interviews with you, and one thing you talked about was like early on in your childhood, in like your musical development, you've kind of felt like a musical outcast because of the music you were into is like different from the people around you. What were you listening to at a young age? Like, was it just like the Prodigy and the Fatboy Slim stuff that just a lot of kids around you weren't listening to?
Yeah, it was like a lot of dance music. It would be like a Prodigy or that. And then also like I was into like experimental rappers, and I would say like Redman, like rappers with like more, I wouldn't say charisma, but like a Redman, which is interesting because he does like EDM shit now.
Yeah, well, yeah, JCO kind of got him over.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was like, I was listening to different. I was kind of off the beaten path with music. It's so weird because I could never put a musical time on. You know how some people can match like the song on the radio with their year, like their ages, and I can never do that because I was listening to so much different shit. Like my uncle I would be listening to like Rakim, and this is like when I was in like, I shouldn't have been listening to Rakim at all, but so it's really hard to put a year on when I was listening to shit. But yeah, I was listening to Bjork.
Oh yeah.
My uncle would put me on a bunch of this shit. So yeah.
And were the other kids around you? Like, would you play that kind of shit and they'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here"?
Nah, I would stay to myself and keep my LimeWire to myself. Like no one's seeing my. I used to have two. I would have a LimeWire and I would have BearShare or whatever the other one was. Oh
yeah. I remember that.
So when I did have friends over, I wouldn't open up. BearShare would be all my like obscure shit, and then LimeWire would be like, oh, he got, he's listening to this on like all the shit. Soldier Boy and shit like that, So like, I would keep my other shit hidden on the.
That's hilarious.
It's funny you bring that up because I feel like that even still to this day.
Like in the dance scene now.
Yeah, because like I don't really fit into the mainstream idea of what like a Black artist or like Afro-Latino, like anything, with the shit I make, I get hit with like hard to market.
Right.
Like and not to compare, I don't want to make this like a race issue again, but like if a white dude made Break the Law or the EP I just came out with, it'll be a different thing for him. But I feel like for me, since, I come from the club scene and I don't look like I don't look a certain way. That's it. I get hit with hard to market, but I feel like I feel the same way musically about shit now.
Does that bother you?
Yeah, it does. Just because I put so much effort into trying to be different, and I just want to be embraced for, even the effort of it. Yeah, I pride myself for being able to make all these like club and all this different shit, but. Like I do like a lot of people don't like dance music or EDM, quote unquote, like the heavy loud shit. Right. I actually do like making it. Like
me too.
So like I said, like especially if you conceptually do it, you don't have to just make like a club banger with "Shake That Fucking Monkey Bitch" as the drop vocal. Like you can put cool shit into it, like so that's why I kind of prided myself on this last EP because I was like, okay, it's bangers. You can listen to this at the festival, but also if we're in a car, me and you, I'm like, yo, this is with this part, this verse, blah, blah, blah. If you hear this in the background.
Yeah. Cause that's right. Yeah. That's a really good point is that, so many like festival bangers people make, it's just for the festival. It's not something you'd like sit at home and listen to. But if you're looking at your music the same way you look at like Rage or old punk music or that kind of thing, that applies to a lot of different situations. And yeah, so I'm kind of putting together everything you're saying now, man, because that's if you approach making music like that yeah, you're not just making a tool for somebody to use at a festival, but it's like, no, this is a song that means something that you can listen to when you're in a certain mood, and it works in a bunch of different contexts like that. Yeah, I think you're right that that's maybe an underappreciated part of what you do because so much, I mean, that's a problem I think we're all aware of. So much of EDM, especially the big bangers, like it's kind of surface level. It's kind of empty. Like that's why EDM gets made fun of so much, you know?
Yeah, and also not to piggyback off what you just said, I think that's what it is. Like the music is kind of like surface level, and you know, having people will hear it in the sets and go crazy and have fun and everything, and then having a picture on IG with Skrillex would do more than hearing a song at a stadium
Right.
would do.
Wait, you were saying that a second ago you were in the studio with Skrillex at a certain point while he was working?
Yeah, this was a bit ago, but it wasn't really a studio session. It was it's like Slink, me, Natus, and Unique. Yeah, it was in Brooklyn, and he was just like he was working on it was something with Slink. Okay. But you know, like I just saw him like how his work, like how quick he works and what he does with sounds and stuff like that. It was really cool to see because he was like flipping like club shit too. You know, like see him do club was crazy.
Yeah. And he's one of those people too, man, where we were talking earlier about how you can tell where some people don't do the homework and don't try to understand the influences they're taking. But with him, you can tell immediately, like, not only does he have like a high musical I almost said EQ, high musical IQ, but you can tell he really like goes back and does the work too, you know, and like studies what came before he really tries to get in there. I mean, even just like bringing in a crew like you and Slink and Unique and all that, you know, half the people wouldn't even do that.
He blew my mind. We had, because that was all for like an OWSLA radio thing. We did like a one-off show in Brooklyn, and he was playing like a bunch of juke footwork.
Oh,
like
wow.
Rashad and all this different stuff. Like he was playing it. It wasn't like us showing him. He was like playing. It was like, oh shit, you know about this shit. Like he's into it. You know,
so sick, man. Yeah, because he's, you know, we're all just music lovers at the end of the day, or at least that's the good ones are. You know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same for you because you started off DJing, like you were DJing before you were producing, right? For years.
Like open format, yeah.
Yeah. So you were playing all kinds of stuff. Did you start on vinyl? How far back did you go with that?
I started DJing probably like 08, 09. Well, like I had turntables and stuff in my house always, but I didn't start like 08, 09 Serato playing like parties, like basement parties and stuff. And then I went off to college. And then the reason why I got into production, I think I said this before, is because I was going to like all the Mad East and stuff, and then making edits. I couldn't afford to pay for the what are they called? The DJ pools. I couldn't afford to pay for
like where I don't know if people know about DJ pools, but yeah, I mean, it was basically like these services you pay like a monthly subscription membership fee, and you get like all the new hot singles delivered to you.
And used to get the 8-bar intros, and that's what I loved,
they'd be like edited up so you could play them in DJ sets. Yeah,
and that kind of taught me how to DJ because I know people who like. Obviously, everyone who learned how to DJ with actual like music, but I learned off the 8-bar intros. That's how I learned how to like blend and all that stuff. So
that's interesting.
But I couldn't afford it, so that's when I got Ableton. I was like, all right, I'm gonna make my own. I'm gonna take the end of the beat and then make an 8-bar into, you know. And I was like, oh, why don't I do this? Why don't I take this part out? And that's kind of how I got into production. So.
That's interesting, man. Was it always music for you? Was there some version of life where you ended up doing something else?
Nah, I tried to rap. That's how I learned how to count bars, rapping. I did trumpet and stuff in elementary school. So yeah, it was always some form of music. My uncle's really big into music.
So were the people around you supportive, like family members and all that?
Not really. My mom wasn't really too fond of it because, you know, DJ, the term DJ is like, you can't say that at family parties and shit. I'm like, oh, he's a DJ. Yeah, right. Get the hell out of my house. You know, you gotta say like audio engineer or some shit.
Right. Make it sound more official. Yeah.
Yeah. So like my mom wasn't too fond of it. But she said to, she was like, if you really want to do it, then, get your own. So I like saved up and got my own pair of Techniques and like the Serato box. And remember, they like it's just crazy. Remember, they like get the boxes and like if the box, I would be running with the SL1 when the SL like 5 was out. I would still have the SL1.
Right.
I pay for this shit, man. I'm gonna still use this shit till it stops working.
Because all that shit's expensive, man. I mean, there's a large startup cost when you're trying to get into this. Like, that's why, earlier talking about the punk thing and talking about like you kind of just do it with what you have around you. That's the way you got to do it, man. Because to buy, like think about a kid trying to start DJing in 2021, 2022, like. You want to go buy a pair of CDJ 3000s and a Pioneer, all that, you're going to drop like 10 G's, A lot of kids don't have money like that. A lot of kids shouldn't have money like that.
Yeah. Maybe they do now with crypto NFTs.
Yeah, just all these 14-year-old crypto millionaires. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely a startup cost, man. I still don't even have proper equipment to play, and it's because it's so expensive and it's a new one all the time. You always want that new one.
What else is going on, man? What else? You got anything coming up? Anything you're working on? Any goals for 2022?
I'm trying to write the follow up to Calm Like a Bomb now. Like you said, that a little more what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more pristine than my club stuff. So I'm trying to keep in that same realm, and I feel like Calm Like a Bomb was the first chapter to whatever I write moving forward. And I can kind of build off that. And then I'm working on some shit called Black Flamingo, which is I'm trying to plan for my my mature shit, like
you're grown and sexy shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be like too old playing so
yeah.
So I have Black Flamingo as well that I'm working on. Yeah, man, it's so tough to tell like what's the future holds sonically because I'm just inspired by whatever.
Yeah,
like I said, a lot of like Latin stuff, a lot of club stuff I'm writing. I've been doing some hip hop stuff for some artists. Just getting the creativity out as much as I can.
Yeah, man. Are you working with anybody else? Not like, any big collabs or anything, but just like I thought it was cool on the last record, you brought Four Color Zach in, you were working with Heritage. I love Heritage.
Yeah, Heritage is sick.
Yeah,
he's a really good sound designer.
Yeah, he's crazy.
He's sick. I've been working with the Caption. CLB. I sent Bandles something. Yeah, sick. Just all over the place. I have a record with Armani Rain. As far as MC, he did some cool vocals. I'm all over the place, man. I'm working with a couple of club producers. Me and Natus are trying to write like an R&B project.
Oh shit, that'd be dope.
Yeah, well, like a club R&B type shit.
Yeah, no, I like that though. That could be really, really sick, man.
Yeah. So it's like, it's funny because you say, how the game goes. Like you'll start writing shit and you won't finish for another like 3 years.
Oh yeah.
It's like you talked about that in 2021. It's 2030 right now. It's like
well, yeah, and that's always a thing. It's like you always want to talk about what you're working on, but of course you learn over time that it's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't talk about everything until it's official.
Well, I wasn't going to say any of the collabs, but now that I'll put it out there, maybe we'll force it to be done because especially now with COVID and stuff, I just feel like I'm just sitting here. I don't know. I don't know if this new variant's going to do anything. So.
I know, man. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we're not out of the woods yet, And like, yeah, some clubs are open and people are touring and all that, but it's not like it was,
Oh, hell no.
Yeah. And it could easily go backwards too. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Especially, everyone has their own opinion on everything, but we'll see.
They sure do.
Yeah.
They sure do. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a crazy time. I mean, the pandemic time for you Was it the Calm Like a Bomb EP, was that pretty much written during the pandemic?
Some of the ideas. So like I had Break the Law written for a long time, but I heard Heritage shit and I was like, yo, let's take the idea and, redo it. The Four Cars Act, that was written during the pandemic. Philadelphia was written well before, but like the melody was written on a train.
Right.
The Shut the Fuck Up record, the idea, the concept of the record was before the pandemic, but it got more aggressive as I was sitting in the house, it was like a cool idea, like shut the fuck up, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, nah, you need to scream on this shit and to let it out. Like,
right. Yeah, like you could the pandemic time like actually shaped the vibe and the feel of it. That makes sense.
That is a diss record.
Right.
It is.
Yeah, man. Not enough EDM diss records, just in general.
I'm letting people know. If the shoe fits, wear it. If you hear "shut the fuck up" and you think it's talking to you, it is. I
love that, man. And do you think you're gonna stick with self-releasing for the time being?
Yeah, I would love to have like a cool label support, but at the same time, like I've worked with just about every label.
Yeah, man, you really have. I was looking earlier this morning, like. Yeah, it's pretty much down the line from, Mad Decent, OWSLA, Insomniac, all that.
Even like the new, like, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but even the newer ones, I didn't realize until I looked at it recently, like even like Keizo's label and Jaws' label, like I released there too. So I was like, damn, like I really did. Gesture's label, I'm like, damn, I really did release like with everyone. Right. So I'm not opposed to it, but I would just like to be on my own time and, have my own ideas. Like, a lot of other labels like to have like their own artwork, stuff like that. I'm just like, I just want to do everything myself.
Yeah, it's smart, man. And I think, what you did with a lot of those labels we were just talking about, is like a single deal or like a few singles, that kind of thing, which is great. And there's, that can be super, super beneficial. But I think you're right that for any artist, when you get to a certain point, when you're starting to conceptualize like larger projects, you're putting out EPs, all that kind of thing, more of like a focused message. Either you got to do it on your own to make sure everything's the way you want it, or you got to have a label that like stands behind you as like a long-term project,
Exactly.
Like it can't just be a one-off, because then you can't trust that they're going to see the vision of it,
Exactly. So like, yeah. And it's crazy. I feel like the EP hasn't even been out that long. Like it came out in September.
Right.
I mean, it's only the beginning of December. I hope people continue to listen to it, and maybe if they hear this conversation, they'll listen to it differently, or, it's definitely like, it's party music, but also it's like, there's other shit going on behind it, in the same sense of it.
Well, it's partying with a message, man. It's like the best, all the best kind of fucking dance music is partying with a message. And it's something I hope we see more of, man. It's like, I've been having a few conversations about that lately where, there's so much party music out there that's just empty right now. And maybe it's always been that way. But then when you get the shit with the message, man, you can feel it. It feels special.
That's why I like Jones and stuff. I don't know if it, like, I just like, even if it doesn't have a message, I like the energy put into it. It can be like a just straight up instrumental, but like you can just feel when something has actual energy.
Yeah, intention, Yeah. And like perspective, all of that kind of shit. Yeah, not like, it doesn't feel like it was made in a lab, you know what I mean?
Yep.
There's so much festival music right now where I'm like, it feels like an AI could have made this,
Yeah, exactly. It's like AI generated, like, just put, Yep.
Well, shit, man. We'll see how many AIs get booked in 2020.
Oh yeah, it'll be straight AIs.
I'm ready for shit, if we're all just gonna go the virtual route and lock back down, whatever. I'll go to the VR AI festival, but
that's a double entendre too. It would be literally straight AI. It's like, no, it won't even like be gay AI or
right.
It's just be straight.
That's dude, spot on for where we're at right now. Well, shit, man. I'll wrap this up so you can get on with your day. But I was listening to our last podcast, the one you did way back when. And I wrap up by asking this one question I asked at the end of each episode, but I hadn't even started doing that yet when we did it the first time. So I'll ask you this one last kind of wrap up question, which is it's like the first thing that pops into your head kind of question, just like random access memory question. Basically, just looking for a memory in your life, like a moment, could be from any time when you were a kid, yesterday, anywhere, when in a single moment, music really had a deep impact on you, really deeply affected you in that moment. And that's meant to be super broad question. There's no wrong answer.
I had this feeling a couple of times, but recently, like even very recently, on Donda Come to Life.
Oh yeah,
bro. Kanye is Kanye, but for some reason that song, I remember listening to it and I was like, oh, this is cool, whatever. But then I was coming home from somewhere. It was probably like 3:00 in the morning. It was super dark. I was in an Uber and that came on out of nowhere. And I was like tearing up in the car. Let's like start to finish. And I was like, holy shit, like this is such a beautiful record. And it sucks to see people just shit on Donda just because his affiliation with whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And but that song is that, and like Jail as well, man. Well, those two songs recently, and I know it was a broader question. You're probably looking for something like
no. There's no, like I said, man, there's no wrong answer. I'm glad we're talking about this actually, because Donda is like, I don't know, man. It's a good album. Like there's a bunch of really good music on there, and it's a good reminder that like the reason we talk about Kanye is because he makes incredible music, or at least that's why we started talking about Kanye. And I mean, it's sad to me that like at this point he's gone so far off the deep end that it's like he overshadows his own art, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I mean, it's, you know, sometimes
Come to Life, man. I heard that and I literally teared up. I was like, what the hell is this, man? Like, and like I said, I heard it in passing when I just listened to it here, you know, just on Spotify. But when I was out and like in an Uber, like I said, driving home on the train, writing Philadelphia, like, yeah, I was just looking at my surroundings and listening to that. I was like, holy shit, this is a crazy, crazy song.
Yeah, man. So, sometimes the music like hits you at the right moment, or sometimes you don't hear it at the right moment, right? And you don't get it at first. Like maybe the first time you heard it, it was just off of Spotify at home and you're like, that's a cool song, whatever. But yeah, man, sometimes, I mean, it makes me think about you riding the train, you know, writing Philadelphia and kind of having that same vibe where it's like, yeah, sometimes all the elements have to come together at the right time. But when they do, you know, if the right artist made it with the right perspective, it can be that really transcendent moment, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the beauty of what we do, right? Like that's what else could give you that feeling?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if the Come to Life was also because of his listening party and he did the whole Set on Fire thing. I don't know, but there's something about that record that really hit something that I haven't, you know, it's like one part of you, it's like you react to it. And that's recently one of them. I couldn't tell you, I would have to hear it in the moment to see what else felt like that. But that song, I definitely, you know, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's like, yeah, I mean, that's the best kind of music, man, is the music that I think short circuits our brains, right? Where it like just cuts to something like really deep and instinctual and emotional, where you're not analyzing it like you would, from like a nerdy producer like sense, but it's just like, it cuts into that deeper part of like, what makes us all human and why we all like music, because it can make us feel that. And I mean, I don't know. And to turn it around, like as producers too, I think that's kind of what we're chasing. It's like you're not always necessarily thinking about it consciously, but like that's, at its best moments, that's what we want our music to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And whether it's at a festival or anything, it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be like a somber song. It can be like a loud, abrasive song too. But man, there's something about that record. But
yeah. Well, shit, man. This has been great. Is there anything else we didn't cover? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything else you want to get out there?
I would just say to if you're listening to this, man, just be yourself, man. Like don't. And this is coming from me right now, and probably one of the toughest moments, like outside of music and shit. Like, everyone has their like internet persona and shit like that. But I'm dealing with a lot of personal shit. So I just want to let everyone know, musically, not musically, whatever, just stay on your P's and Q's. And it sounds easier said than done, but just don't lose sight of what you started doing, what you're doing for it. And I'm just talking to anyone creatively. It's hard. It's hard to explain. I know. I just feel like I'm saying words.
Nah, man. I think that applies even more, not even just to art, but just in life. Like, yeah. And I like sometimes you see like, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but sometimes that's when the light is right there. So just keep doing what you're doing, man. If you feel good doing that shit, keep doing it. Unless it's like drugs, don't do that shit. But right, yeah.
But it's like anything that gives you, you feel good doing it. Whether it's a podcast and no one's listening, or a song and you put up and it has, especially now with the Spotify rap shit, a lot of people get depressed because they see all these people's numbers and they're like, damn, I don't have those numbers, blah, blah, blah. Like, fuck those numbers, man. Just keep creating and, keep doing you,
I love that.
I don't know what else.
No. Yeah. That's, we couldn't end it better than that, man. And
I'm not the best person with words, but
dude, what are you talking about? We've been talking for like an hour and a half. No, this is great, man. And I'm very appreciative of everything you do, man. I'm glad you're still doing it. And send me the new shit, man. I'm stoked to hear what you've been working on. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'll send you something right after this because I'll explain later. I'll text you. Yeah. Let me know. Hell yeah. Well, this has been great, man. Thank you for coming back on. Thank you for having me, man. I was like, damn, when's he going to invite me back? I just want to shoot the shit with him, man. No, 100%. Because I know anytime we talk, we're not going to have trouble finding something to talk about. Yep. Thank you for having me, man. Anytime, man. Thank you for doing it. And I'll talk to you soon, man. Peace. All right, brother.